The Cogne case, Annamaria Franzoni, and the murder of infants in the Italian Alps. On Wednesday, January 30th, 2002, life in the small village of Cogne, a scenic getaway tucked at the base of the Graian Alps in Valle d'Aosta, Italy, went on as usual. At 8:28 a.m., Stefano Lorenzi, his wife Annamaria Franzoni, and their two children called 911 from their wooden house. The house was in the small village of Montroz, which is in the municipality of Cogne. An ambulance rushed to the scene. Dr. Satragni, the family doctor, got to the scene of the crime before the police arrived. At first, Satragni thought Samuele might have had a brain tumor, and she stuck to that idea for a long time. She suggested that the child's crying might have caused the head to open. In fact, the victim had a serious head injury that showed gray matter. Even though it was very cold, the doctor washed Samuel's face and head and put him on a homemade stretcher outside the house. Because they had to save the child's life, these actions unfortunately damaged both the crime scene and the victim's overall health. Rescuers who came by helicopter found that the wounds on Samuel's body were the result of a violent act and notified the Carabinieri, who carried out initial investigations. The child was declared dead at 9:55 a.m. The autopsy established at least 17 blows delivered with a blunt tool as the cause of death. Micro traces of copper were found on the victim's head, suggesting the use of an ornamental ladle or other copper objects. Slight cuts on the hands suggested an extreme attempt at defense. What happened that terrible January morning in the Lorenzi house? At 5:45 a.m., the medical guard, Serafina Neri, is called to the Montroz cottage by 31-year-old Annamaria Franzoni, who says she is sick. Neri comes 10 minutes later, examines Franzoni, and doesn't prescribe any medication to her. Between 7:30 and 7:40 a.m., Stefano Lorenzi leaves from house and heads to Aosta for work. According to the preliminary hearing judge, it is from this moment onward that the schedule for the death of little Samuel can be established, at least until 8:28 a.m., the time Franzoni calls for help. Between 8 and 8:15 a.m., Samuele's brother Davide steps out into the yard to enjoy a few rides on his bicycle as he waits for his mother to accompany him to the bus stop. At 8:16 a.m., Franzoni leaves the house with her son and reaches the stop. The bus arrives at 8:20 a.m. The driver says he did not notice anything odd at this point. Annamaria Franzoni returns to the house at 8:24 a.m. and finds her son, Samuele, agonizing in his parents' bed. At 8:29 a.m., startled by Franzoni's screams, a neighbor arrives at the Lorenzi's house. While on the phone with the emergency service, Franzoni also calls family doctor Satragni, to whom she says that Samuel's head probably exploded. The investigators' initial observation upon getting at the crime scene, that is, the Lorenzi family's matrimonial bedroom, was the extensive presence of blood traces on the cot and the surrounding walls, which in itself already made the aneurysm theory held by Satragni implausible. Despite the check inside the cottage, the murder weapon could not be found. Speculations arose regarding the possible use of a blunt object, such as a copper ladle, a mountain axe, or a saucepan usually used for boiling milk, among other items. However, investigators found pajamas belonging to Franzoni smeared with blood. This was considered important evidence against her, although the defense tried to deny its validity and relevance, claiming that the pajamas were laying on the bed during the attack by an unknown assailant. Another fact that made investigators suspicious was Franzoni's own statement that she had left the house unattended for only 8 minutes. Could it be that a mysterious maniac reached the cottage at that juncture and without reason killed little Samuele? From the beginning, Franzoni sought to offer investigators an alternative lead, proposing that her neighbor, Daniela Ferrod, the same neighbor whom she had called upon discovering Samuele in the bed, might have been involved in her son's death. This is how Franzoni talked about Ferrod in a wiretap recording a few days after Samuele's murder. "I convinced myself that she did it. She is sick. She has witch's eyes. It was not our fault. It was the fault of a person who, by not getting treatment, got to this point." In a separate recorded conversation, Franzoni depicted with chilling accuracy her envisioned chain of events. Ferrod reportedly entered while she was accompanying her other son to the bus stop. Gripped by what Franzoni described as hallucinating rage, Ferrod reportedly approached Samuele in his crib. The infant's fear allegedly escalated Ferrod's aggression, leading to a violent assault. Meanwhile, the Lorenzis made the choice to leave Cogne, as the town had become engulfed in an obsessive and sad media spectacle. It had also transformed into a location for dark tourism, drawing individuals who had developed a morbid fascination with the case through television coverage. Away from Cogne, the couple provided investigators with a list of people they thought might be involved in the crime. This choice was never forgiven by the inhabitants of the Alpine village, who thought that the two outsiders, as they were called since they were not natives of Cogne, were lying to protect their position. On March 2, 2002, Franzoni was officially indicted for the murder of her son, Samuele. One of the central pieces of evidence against her was the report from the RIS, the forensic section of the Carabinieri, who performed blood pattern analysis on the pajamas. The analysis showed that the item had been worn during the attack, as suggested by the projection of the blood traces on it. Another inference made by the RIS was that the killer moved into the cottage with extreme confidence, as if he knew the surroundings well. 12 days later, the inevitable happened, as Judge Fabrizio Gandini ordered the woman's arrest. The doors of the Turin jail opened for her. In the 83-page preventive custody order, the reasoning behind the decision was outlined. Gandini started his reconstruction by stressing that Franzoni had an alibi for only 8 minutes, and that the attack must have occurred between 8 and 8:29 a.m., which is when Ferrod arrived at the Lorenzis' cottage. There was thus a temporal availability for Franzoni to carry out the attack. In addition to the pajamas, another item highlighted as important by the judge was a pair of slippers, upon the soles of which the RIS had found tiny traces of blood. Franzoni admitted wearing them upon her return home at 8:24 a.m. However, eyewitnesses who hurried to the cottage claimed that she was wearing black ankle boots instead. Less than a year after the tragedy, Annamaria Franzoni became a mother again, giving birth to Samuele. But now, the trial against her was near. On July 3, 2003, the prosecutors in Aosta requested Franzoni's trial to continue. Carlo Taormina, renowned as one of Italy's top criminal attorneys and heading Franzoni's defense team, advocated for a speedy trial and obtained it. In the pre-trial hearing, Judge Eugenio Gramola granted the defense's plea for an expert evaluation of various aspects of the crime scene, including the numerous blood traces found in the cottage. German criminologist Hermann Schmitter was the one in charge of writing the expert report. The results of the study came in the spring of 2004. According to Schmitter, the sole confidence lies in the fact that the perpetrator of the crime struck Samuele while kneeling on the bed and wearing pajamas. However, the traces found on the slippers are subject to controversy, as their timing of production cannot be definitively determined. On July 19, 2004, Annamaria Franzoni was sentenced to 30 years in jail by Judge Gramola. The woman was guilty for several reasons. There were no sightings of anyone suspicious loitering in the area. Except for a short 8-minute absence, Franzoni was at the cottage that morning. It seemed unlikely that the woman would leave the door unlocked to head to the bus stop. The question arises, why would the attacker wear Franzoni's pants and likely her pajama top to carry out the attack? The woman gave misleading explanations for the blood traces on the boots and downplayed Samuele's condition in the emergency calls. The absence of motive, as far as the Montroz residents were worried. At the end of the hearing, lawyer Taormina revealed that he would soon reveal the name of the real person responsible for Samuele's murder, which he did by filing a complaint on July 30th of that year. In November, the name was disclosed openly, yet the evidence against the person was so minimal that it's unnecessary to reiterate it here. Investigators, however, claimed that the claims of Franzoni's defense amounted to defamation and charged the woman, her husband, lawyer Taormina, and other members of the defense team with slander. As of September 2018, Annamaria Franzoni is a free woman who maintains her innocence regarding her son Samuele's sad murder.